Hi, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. We're going to look at this box today. Let's see what's inside. Well, we're going to revisit some old friends. A few episodes ago, we talked about the AHI Monsters, or AHI, if you want to pronounce it AHI, or AHI, whatever you want to do. I say AHI. And here we are again with another AHI monster. Is this a rerun? No. This is what I would call a style C, like ABC, card, style C variation. And you'll remember when I talked about the AHIs last time, I said there were all these different versions. And that's what we're looking at here. This is a different version of the Dracula. Unlike most of the AHI Draculas, it doesn't have Dracula's big face in the back. It has him pictured on the side here. And this is the only version that has Dracula pictured on the side, except maybe the ones with cupped hands, they may have that. But most of the Draculas you see do not have Dracula on the side. So this is unique. This series on this style card is unique. Other things about this card, that doesn't say AHI anywhere on the card. It doesn't have any kind of Universal Studios copyright. Even though none of the Draculas do in the AHI series. In this case, even the Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Mummy, even they don't have universal copyrights. And there's no creature in this series. Just these four. Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy. They didn't make a creature to go with this series. As far as I know, this set, the one I call the Style C, as an ABC, Style C, as far as I know, these were late in the line. These might have been the last ones to come out. They also made some with weird cup-shaped hands, like this. And those are on similar cards, except they're a little shorter. The cards are actually smaller. They look pretty much the same, but they're about a ½ inch shorter. And as far as I know, those cupped hand AHIs are the only ones that have a card that's significantly different in size. I really like this Dracula. He's really minty and cool, and I like the look of him. And you can see that the card is unpunched. It's a really minty card. I used to have all four on this style, but I sold them. And truth be told, this guy is not going to be staying with me much longer either. He's going to a new home. I don't sell things very often, but someone just caught me at the right time, and we talked and made a deal we were happy with. So it's good that I'm immortalizing him in this video, so I'll have this to remember him by. I do miss my toys when they leave me. I even years later, I miss them. Like kids, they grow up and go to college, and I miss them. There's like an empty nest. So I've had this guy for about 25 years, since the early 90s. 91, 92, something like that. Maybe even earlier, maybe 1990. So I've had him a long time. His buddies, the Frankenstein, Mummy, Wolfman, they've been gone a long time. But I kept him just because he was so crisp and mint. So I hope the new owner enjoys him. He's going to Spain. He's going overseas. But, well, collection has to change. Things have to turn over. So we're going to put him aside so he doesn't get damaged. I've got a box right here. In fact, it's probably the box he's going to get shipped in. It's going to go right in there. There he is. He's safe. Okay. Now the rest of this box is also filled with AHI toys. So we've already been through the AHIs. Why are we going back to AHIs? There's just so much to talk about. One episode isn't enough. And I was thinking of saving this box to use in the second season. I like making these kinds of programs in seasons. So this is the first season of Basement of Horror, and there's about a dozen episodes or so, and there will be later this year a second season. We're going to do this episode and one more episode, and we're going to take a break, and I'm going to work on Tomb of the Topstones, get some more of those, a second season of Tomb of the Topstones, and also I hope some music-oriented videos. Not like teaching music or anything like that, but just music, you know, playing synthesizers, because I haven't done one of those in a while. And people who subscribe to my channel thinking they were going to watch synthesizer videos are saying, what the heck is all this toy junk and mask junk, and come on, let's have the synthesizer music. So we'll get back to that. But first we have this episode and one more of Basement of Horror. Then we'll take a little break, and we'll come back with a new season of Basement of Horror. So now let's look at some of these AHIs. We're not going to see any more of those Mego style toys in this video. That was it, just that Dracula. Let's see. Can I get this out of here without having to take everything apart? Yeah, there we go. All right. Okay. Yep. Ah, there's one. Oh, that's Zilla. Ah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Is there another one in here? I'm worried this is going to be a very long episode, because this box is just full of a lot of little toys packed in there. Okay, let's see what we have here. We've got the Sparking Walkers. AHI Sparking Walkers. I'm a big King Kong fan. I really love the original RKO King Kong. And here we have a wind-up toy. This is a King Kong wind-up toy. He walks and sparks come out of his mouth. And you see he's got this wonderful illustration that looks like the original RKO King Kong. It doesn't look like just the big gorilla, it actually looks like King Kong. And then this is generally called the Godzilla of the set, even though it's technically not Godzilla. It's called Rex Dinosaur. But everyone just calls it Godzilla because that's what it's really supposed to be. They just didn't have the Toho license. So there's this Godzilla-style dinosaur that walks and sparks come out of his mouth. And if AHI had made any licensed Godzilla items, I guess he would look like that. And you can see the fire coming out of his mouth. And you also see how they cut him off before you see the back, so he doesn't have any plates on his back to trigger a lawsuit from Toho. Toho is very litigious. They will sue you, just like Bela Lugosi Jr. is very litigious. Those are two people, when it comes to monster toys, you don't want to cross them. They will sue you. And there's nothing on the backs of these things. Just plain. Let's see, do I want to take him out? I guess. And here is a bagged Sparking Walker. There's the Godzilla, the Rex dinosaur in a bag. And kind of like the Dracula we just saw, this also came out later and doesn't have AHI or any other kind of marking except made in Hong Kong. So there was this whole late wave of AHI toys that didn't say AHI on them. So you had stuff like this, and then you had some of these that were loose in a counter display box, and you had those action figures like the Dracula I just showed you, and the cupped hand ones, and all that stuff. There are other things as well that didn't say AHI. They were obviously AHI toys that had been released earlier as AHI, and they had the same package design, but they don't say AHI anywhere on the package. So people wondered, were they really made by AHI? Or did AHI sell the molds and the printing plates for the packages and all? Did they sell all that to some other company? Or was AHI all along buying that from a third-party company in Hong Kong that could have sold that to anyone and just happened to sell those toys to AHI to distribute, sort of? I think AHI, well, I'm sure AHI initiated the production of those toys, that they wanted to get in, they wanted to compete with Mego, and they got the universal license. Mego didn't. So I'm quite sure that AHI instigated those toys. They weren't just picking them up, something that was already being made. But after AHI stopped offering those toys in their catalogs, those toys continued. So I'm not sure, no one's really sure, are those toys still made by AHI, or were they made by someone else? Were they made by a company that had been making them all along for AHI? I'm not an expert on the Hong Kong toy scene. I'd love to read a book that was just all about Hong Kong in the 60s and 70s and the toy manufacturing business there, and who was who and what was what, because I have a feeling that it was a very different world than we imagine, that the way we think things ran was not actually the way things ran. Hi, Miss Kitty. I have two cats, Stinker and Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty just walked across. But she's way too shy to come say hello. That will never happen. Anyway, so there's a few more things here. There is a creature, well, here's a loose Rex dinosaur. Okay, there's a creature from the Black Lagoon that goes with this set of walkers. And he goes for a lot of money. So I don't have him. I have a loose one. And I'm not sure if this loose one is officially AHI or not. I'm trying to see how to take him out of here. There it is. Okay. There's a way to tell. Yeah, I don't think he's officially from the same AHI sanctioned set that came on these cards. See, these were sold many different ways. Carded, loose, bagged, whatever. As far as I know, the only ones that actually say AHI on them are these carded ones. So this is, I mean, the creature, the AHI creature, Sparking Walker, looks just like this. It's the same toy, except it has AHI markings on it. So these toys were, I've got a cat in a litter box back here. Hi, Miss Kitty. Hi. Hi, you can come up here if you want. You want to come up here? No? Okay. Okay, well, so these toys were made under the AHI banner and without the AHI banner. So you'll see these for sale different ways, but it's the same toy. Now, there was a later version that I think the sculpt is a little different, and the paint's definitely different. And usually when you see the ones in the counter display, those are different. And sometimes the little wind-up on the side is a different color. Sometimes they don't have toes. Like all of the ones I've shown you have toes on the feet, but you'll see them with just squared off feet, and those came later, and those are definitely not made by AHI. So this probably wasn't made by AHI, or at least it wasn't, I should say it wasn't sold by AHI, but it's the same mold, it's the same toy. And if he were on a card like these two, if he were on an AHI card, I'd say minimum to buy him would be $1,500, maybe more, I don't know. I think the last one that sold was $1,500, but I mean, that's probably a conservative price now. So I'd like to have one. I mean, I've got the other two, so I obviously would like to have the creature. I had an opportunity once to buy a creature on a card. It was a really strange deal. I think, I don't know what the guy wanted for it, but it wasn't much. I mean, it was like $200 or $300, which at the time was not the steal of the century. At the time, that was just a good price for it, because they weren't going for big bucks yet. So this guy had a creature on a card, and I was trying to make a deal to buy it from him, and the only pictures he would send me were postage stamp sized pictures. So he sent me these teeny weeny little pictures. If you zoomed in on the computer, it's all pixelated, which is itsy little photos. You couldn't tell anything. And finally, after a few months of talking to this guy, he sent me a high resolution photo, so I could see, oh yes, he actually has this thing. And right before we were gonna like make a deal and shake hands on it, he tells me he dropped it. I think it was outside on the driveway, I think. But in any case, he dropped it, and the bubble came off, and the toy came out of the bubble. So I don't know what was going on there. That's what he said. So that was my opportunity to get a carded creature Sparking Walker. And you see the counter display for sale, fairly often. It's not that rare a thing. And it doesn't sell for as much as you'd think. But that's because it was made much later. It's not as old as people think. I don't know exactly how old it is, but I think it was made much more recently than people realize. So they may still be making these things in Hong Kong. I'm not sure. They're not exactly the same sculpt, and the paint's different, but the same idea. And at first glance, they seem to be the same toy, unless you compare them side by side. So as a kid, I had the dinosaur for sure, and I had the creature for sure, and I still have my childhood ones somewhere, but it'd be hard to find them. I don't think I ever had the King Kong, which is weird because I love King Kong so much. I don't think I ever had him. He's a cute little King Kong. We're gonna have a lot of things piling up. All right, here's an interesting item. I have a lot of jigglers. Now, a jiggler is a solid rubber toy, usually has an elastic band on it, it jiggles around. It's made of oily rubber, like petroleum-based rubber. And I have a lot of jigglers in general, just in my collection. But in this box, I have far more jigglers than I'm going to show you. I have a bunch of AHI jigglers. I've sold several over the years, but I still have way too many. There's no way I'm going to show you all those jigglers. I mean, it's not, they're not all different. They're the same ones, like umpteen different Frankensteins and several Wolfman, several creatures, several mummies. I don't have that many King Kongs. So let's look at the Jiggler King Kong. Well, first let's look at him in this bag. Gotta get this out of here. I can already see that's going to be a problem. Okay, so, alright. I don't know if you can see through the bag. See, if I take the bag away, the toy's going to come out. So here's this Jiggler. He's on a cool card. You see how he goes on the card. Now let's take him out. Because he's not actually attached to the card, I don't usually have him out. He probably hasn't been out in a long time, many years. Alright. Let's see if I can hold him in place. So he is normally, like when he was in the stores, he'd be tied to this card. And I do have the ties. The ties are still there. You can see the ties. So they're there, but I don't want him. It's better to store him like this than store him tied up. Now here's this wonderful artwork. Look at that. AHI always had such amazing artwork on their packages. I mean, it's so cute. It's very cute, but it's also on model in that they don't do their own interpretation of Kong. That it hits the right spot. I mean, they get it. They know what is Kong, what is not Kong, and that is Kong. So many companies to the present day, then and now, they just make a giant gorilla, a giant angry gorilla, and say it's King Kong. But AHI, their artwork always looked dead on like King Kong. Even though this is kind of crude and stylized, it looks like King Kong. I mean, they get it right. And here's the Jiggler itself. How can I do this so you'll see it? Let's see here. I don't want to damage it. Yeah, it's too much contrast. Maybe against my blue shirt you can see it. I don't know. And you see he's got Fay Ray in his hand. And the Fay Ray is molded off the Aurora model kit Fay Ray. And this whole Jiggler is kind of styled off of the Aurora kit. I don't want things to get out of hand here, so I'm going to put some things away as I look at them. So that is a Jiggler, but it's on a card. And AHI made a whole series of Jigglers. And they sold them loose, and they sold them carded. That's the only carded one I have. They also did Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, and Creature. And those all had a different style card with a haunted mansion or a haunted castle and the moon, and much like the artwork on their cards, their action figure cards, much like that artwork. Very similar idea, very similar aesthetic. But Kong had this movie style art on his card, so that was unique. Okay, this is interesting because it's very rare. This is the same Jiggler. Same Jiggler. But this has a tag. So here's the same Jiggler we just saw. As far as I know, it's the same mold. Physically the same and same size. Everything's the same. But this one has a tag. And that is very rare. When you see this jiggler, it's usually just loose, but if it has any kind of packaging, it's got the card. To see it with this tag is very rare, and this is really the only tagged one I've ever seen. And he's got a cute little picture. It's way too small to show up, but he's standing over the New York skyline with his arms raised. Really cute. So, those are King Kong jigglers. Before we go on talking about other jigglers, here's another thing that's really weird. These are pencil toppers. Let's see, how can I show these to you? Will this work? I mean, it's so small. I don't know what else I can do. But here we have the Wolfman and Dracula. And I realize that it's probably really, really small. Maybe in post I can zoom in a little bit. But this is probably as good as we're going to get it. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, I can't tell whether that's in focus or not. I hope it is. And you can see that Dracula is green. So these were made using the same molds as the 8-inch action figures. Like this Dracula head is the same sculpt as that action figure on the card. But some of the colors were different. Like Mummy, instead of yellow like the action figure, Mummy in this head topper, the pencil topper version, the Mummy was gray. And Dracula was green instead of either red or tan like the action figures. Now Wolfman is pretty much the same color, and I think Frankenstein is also the same green color as the action figure. Now these are quite rare, these pencil toppers. So they're meant, like, I don't know if kids still do this, but when I was in school we had like the number 2 lead pencils and had erasers on top, and there were toys that you could stick on top of the pencil, like where the eraser is, to stick on top of there to just kind of personalize your pencils. And that's what these were. They were monster heads that you'd stick on the top of the pencil. So you'd be in school writing and you have a little monster head on your pencil. That's cute. These are really super duper rare. And I've always wanted to have all 4. Don't think that's all that's going to happen. I'm probably fortunate to have these 2. But these are some of the rarest AHI items out there. These pencil toppers. I don't know how they were sold, if they were on a card or loose, or if they had all 4 on one card. I have no idea. Never seen a package. I just know that they had the 4: Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy. No one's ever seen a creature. Probably wasn't a creature. But I neglected to show you the bottom. I'd better show you that. So on the bottom of these things is a hole where the pencil eraser would go. You'd stick that hole over the eraser. And the reason, I mean, you say, well, duh, of course it's got a hole in it. What would you expect? Well, I want to show you that because there's a lot of toys that are kind of similar that were like charms, things like that. And you might, or action figure heads that snap into a body, but they've got a hole in the bottom. And you might be confused and think you've got one of these pencil toppers. So I want you to see what that hole looks like, so you can identify that if you're wondering whether you have a pencil topper or something else. These holes are obviously manufactured. I mean, the bottom of the head is flat. There's no knob or plug or anything. It's just flat with a perfectly round hole. That's obviously part of the mold. So there's no mistake about it. If you're looking at it and you're thinking, I'm not sure if that's meant to be a hole for an eraser or not, then it's not. Because when you see one that's genuine, it's obvious. It's very obvious that it was made that way. And I know these have really, well, they don't change hands very often, so it's hard to put a price on them, but they've really gone up in recent years. I mean, I've heard of some far out deals being made on these. The value on these little heads is, I mean, they were going up way back when I got these. I was fortunate I got a good deal on those years ago. But now they're really moved into sort of holy grail territory as far as the pricing is concerned. So those are some of the rarest, most desirable pieces in the AHI collection out of the toys I still have. I used to have a much bigger AHI collection than this. This is what's left. Okay, let's see. Now we're going to look at some Bend Ems. And I have quite a few of those. And the reason I'm going through them all is because I'm trying to get to the ones I collected as an adult, because my childhood Bend Ems are mixed in with these other Bend Ems, and I don't know which is which. Oh dear. I don't know if you can see what I got. I got a lot of Bend Ems. Okay, did I hit the bottom? I think that's it. Well, thought I had a loose King Kong. Well, all these Bend Ems and I don't have a loose King Kong. Huh. Okay, so here's an example of a Bend Em. AHI Bend Ems. They're bendy figures. They're rubber with wires in them. This is interesting because these are both creatures, but they're different. They're made of different kinds of rubber. This is, let's see, make sure I got them right. This one is more of an opaque rubber, and this is more of a translucent rubber. And as far as I can tell, oh, look at that. Oh, that's interesting. So his his fin is kind of smushed there, and I don't want to mess with it. It looks like it might be melting a little bit. I'm not sure. And it feels different, the rubber on this one. And this one doesn't have any problem like that. This is made from a very different kind of rubber. So I don't know why they made these two out of different kinds of rubber, but they did. So I wonder if he's reacting to that bag. So there's the creature. And I know I've got my childhood creature in here somewhere. There's more creatures. That's not my childhood creature. Oh, he's got really nice paint. This is my childhood creature. He's like stapled in there. That's the one I had as a kid. Oh, there's another creature in plastic. He's stuck in there pretty good. Here's the Wolfman, if I can get him out of here. There's the Wolfman. He's not wearing a shirt, very much like the Aurora model kit. He's not wearing a shirt. He's got a rope tied around his waist. And I like how he's got black hair and a beard. It makes him look, kind of disturbingly human. He looks kind of like a crazed hippie. That expression on his face and that dark hair and the beard. Looks kind of like me. At least he looks like I did when I had shorter hair. So he's kind of creepy looking. I like him. And I used to have a carded Wolfman, but not anymore. In fact, I might be mistaken, but I think the same friend that bought the carded Lincoln Wolfman, remember I told you about him in another video, I think the same friend has my carded Bendy, AHI Bendy Wolfman, because he's a big Wolfman collector. Let's see, here's a mummy. I've got a couple of mummies. Okay, that's my childhood mummy. That is the mummy I had in childhood. I can tell my childhood toys immediately. They look, well, I know every little detail about them. Yeah, okay, this is the mummy a mummy I bought as an adult. Mummy is my favorite of the set, and he's also the hardest to find. So that's the mummy, the AHI Bend Ems. It's BEND apostrophe EMS, Bend Ems. There's the mummy. And he's always been, as a kid, he was my favorite, and as an adult, he's my favorite. And I wish I could have a carded one, but he is the hardest to find, loose or carded. And I'm sure at this point a carded AHI Bend Ems mummy, it would probably be several $1,000s. So I won't be getting one of those. Even more than the creature. Creature is usually the expensive one in a set, and he is in this set as well, but mummy's even more expensive. Okay. Now I thought there must be some more Bend Ems that are in here somewhere. Yeah, probably. Because I know I had a Dracula with an original cape, These are childhood Draculas, so these capes are not original. Those are fabric capes. The original Dracula, he did come with a cape that was red on both sides, like that. That's the way it looked, but it was made of rubber. These are made of fabric. So that is my childhood Dracula. This is my brother's childhood Dracula, again with a replacement cape. This is a Dracula I bought as an adult. And I'm sure there's one with a rubber cape like it's supposed to have somewhere, but I don't know what it is. So here he is. That's Dracula. And he came with a red rubber cape that was red on both sides. And he actually does look like Bela Lugosi, surprisingly. That's a pretty decent, for the format, for the kind of toy it is, it's surprisingly accurate as far as the Lugosi likeness. You wouldn't think on a rubber toy like that they'd be able to capture that likeness, but I think they did a pretty good job. Let's put it in here. Now, I used to have a carded Dracula, Bend Ems. I don't anymore. Of course, he did have the rubber cape, so if I still had him, I could show you. I don't have him anymore. The card had some damage, so I sold it. If it hadn't been damaged, I might have kept it. This is my childhood Frankenstein. And this is my brother's childhood Frankenstein with a little homemade jacket. You see the homemade jacket? It's like a denim jacket. And here is a Frankenstein I bought as an adult. Now that's a pretty good Frankenstein. I really like him. That actually looks like Frankenstein. No, it looks like the Universal Frankenstein. It's got a reasonably good Karloff face. He has a kind of sleepy, tired, sad, miserable face that Frankenstein should have. Like, yeah, like, so I like sad Frankensteins. I don't want like angry Frankenstein or scary I want like sleepy Frankenstein. Sleepy, sad Frankenstein. Because that's what he looks like in the movies. And as I recall, when we were playing with these as kids, I think my Frankenstein was always wanted to go to sleep. I think he was sleepy. He always wanted to take a nap. Because like in the Universal house movies, like House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Frankenstein's always just lying around on this table, and he only comes to life at the end of the movie. So that's what he did in the movies. He just laid around, asleep. And Gamel, my brother, his name's Gamel, his Frankenstein was always like a superhero, like super strong. He was the strongest being in the universe next to the Hulk. He could lift huge things. So I had the sleepy Frankenstein, just was always asleep, and Gamel had the superhero Frankenstein. Let's see here. Okay, speaking of Frankenstein, I guess I'll take him out. Here's what these things look like on a card. Here's a carded Frankenstein. So he's got this wonderful illustration of Frankenstein. His bubble is cracked, and I guess if you really wanted to, you could probably pull him out, but I don't think he's ever been out. it's hard to find these Bend Ems carded with pristine bubbles. They're usually cracked. So there he is. The back of the bubble, or the card, is just plain. He's a really cute illustration there. And you can see the way they drew Frankenstein. He's just kind of sleepy and trying to mind his own business. He's not scary or aggressive. Wondering if I thought they might put like Mary Shelley's name or something on the tombstones, but it's nothing like that. But you can see that haunted house kind of motif back there. Most of the AHI packaging had that kind of haunted house theme. Somewhere on there was a haunted castle or a haunted house and bats and a moon. Most of the cards had stuff like that. And this is licensed by Universal Studios. All of them except the Dracula. And with the Bend Ems, I don't remember if the Bend Ems Dracula was or was not Universal Studios. But all of the rest of them surely were Universal Studios, except this, which is a King Kong. So I don't have a loose King Kong Bend Em, but I've got a carded one. And at one time, I had 3 carded King Kong Bend Ems. I was swimming in King Kong Bend Ems. So here's a carded King Kong Bend Em. So at one time I had 3 of these King Kongs. Had that Frankenstein, had a Dracula, and had a Wolfman. Never had creature or mummy on a card. And his bubble's pretty good. I mean, he's got one of the better bubbles I've seen. And I love that illustration. I mean, it really looks like King Kong. And he's got little Fay Ray in his hand. I mean, it's so cool. They bothered to do that, to put the little woman in his hand. The illustration shows he's got a plane in his hand. They could have done that too, I guess. And it's got this little Kmart or Kresge price tag that's actually printed on the card. That's not a sticker. That's not a sticker, that's printed on the card. So this was made for what I assume was Kresge, not Kmart at the time. This was made for Kresge. And this is the only one I had that had that printed on like that. So all the other cards I had, they didn't have that. Well, I don't know, maybe the King Kongs had, but I know the Dracula, the Wolfman, the Frankenstein, they didn't have that. So that's interesting. And the back of this card has some scribbles. It's got some water damage and some scribbles on it. And another one that I had, was it the Dracula? I don't remember. One of the other, I don't think, maybe it was another Kong, I don't think so. One of the other carded ones I had some scribbles, but some kid had drawn the KISS logo with the stylized K and the S's and drawn the KISS logo on back of the card. Not filling the whole back, just small, but still, it was cute to see that. All that sort of, it was like a gestalt in the 70s, all that kind of came together. The monsters and the KISS and everything. And I think part of the reason I started selling these carded ones after having them so long, because I couldn't get the mummy or the creature. I just got upset at having an incomplete set. That happens a lot. when there's one or two that I can't obtain, I've got an incomplete set, I just start selling the rest. But I'm not selling these two. I'll hold on to those. So that's like the seed of a future collection. Maybe someday I'll get another Wolfman or Dracula and it'll grow again. I don't know. So how in the world am I going to show these jigglers? That is going to be tough, because I have so many. I don't know where to start. Let's see here. Oh, brother. I mean, I don't know what to do. There's too many of them here. Way too many. Let's just see if I can get carded examples of the 4. And just go with that. How am I ever going to put this stuff back? Because there's a creature. A few creatures, not just one. Okay, so here's an example of a creature. What mummy do I want to show? He's kind of a mess. Yeah, okay, I'll show that mummy. There's a Wolfman, I'll show him. Okay, I need more creatures. How many creatures are in here? Yeah, Wolfman. Oh, come on. I need a tagged Frankenstein. Oh my gosh. So many Frankensteins in here. Okay, is this one got a tag? Nope. I'm trying to get a carded set to show you. Holy Toledo. How about this one? His arm's kind of funky, but he's got a tag. Yeah, okay. There we go. There's a tagged set. Let's get these. I'll straighten them all back up later. Oh boy. Okay, so here are the jigglers. No wires. So the ones I've been showing you, they have wires inside. That's why they're called bend Ems, because you bend them and they hold their pose. You bend their arm and it stays that way, and you bend it back. And after you play with them for a while, the wires will start to poke out of the rubber. Like, well, it could be front or back, but the rubber would split and the wires would poke out. And after you bent the limbs a few times, the wires would break and then the limbs wouldn't bend anymore. So a lot of these have broken wires. You can tell if the arms are sticking straight out. That's because the wires are broke. So let's see. Here's a Frankenstein. Now these big jigglers were sold loose with tags. They were sold on cards with the haunted house design on the artwork, and they're sold different ways. Better not mess with that. Okay, so, and the thing about these rubber jigglers, the elastic on them, I think is made of, maybe it's got latex in it. The elastic over time, it either kind of melts or it becomes brittle. So it's like this rubber is petroleum based. I think the rubber in these elastic bands might be latex based. I don't think they go together very well, because it's kind of stuck to them here. I don't want to pull it apart. I want to show you the tag. So here's Frankenstein. I don't want to cover him up. And his arm's a little funky. It should be sticking up more like the other one. This is Frankie. And here's his tag. So they came with these elastic bands and these tags. And the tag has the little haunted house and full moon behind it and bats flying around. It says Frankenstein on it. And actually the logo is really cool. Can you see that? I think so. So you can see that cool artwork on that tag. And then there's a price sticker behind it. Gold Circle. I guess that was a regional store. Probably some people watching this will know what that is, but I didn't have Gold Circle in my area. So the tags are really neat. And then the toy is really cool. And they're big, they're substantial, they have some weight. They're large. Now they're about, like this Frankie is probably 8 inches tall. I mean, he looks like he's as big as Amigo. And the sculpt is very nice, and it's scary looking. He's not funny, he's not comical. He looks like Frankenstein. You see those blue boots? And let's see, let's look at Wolfman. He's a little, he's not as screen accurate as some of these. This Wolfman looks a little more like a Wookiee, like Chewbacca, but this was before Star Wars. Carefully get him out of here. So you can see that he looks like Chewbacca more than a Universal Studios kind of a Wolfman. But this was well before Star Wars. This, I can't really see the date on these, but I'm going to guess 1974. And Wolfman's made of a kind of translucent rubber, not like the more solid rubber that Frankie's made of. And his paint's a little tacky. And by tacky, I don't mean in poor taste. I mean it's like to touch, it's a little tacky. So here's the mummy. Okay. As usual, I love the mummy. He's really cute. And here's his little tag. And I like the way they really captured the Aurora model kit in this sculpt. I mean, it really looks like the Aurora model. It's got the same pose. He's got a really cute face. I mean, obviously there must be elements of the Aurora model kit actually used in the sculpt. I don't think they just were inspired by it. I think they actually used the plastic parts in making this thing. Like this face, I mean, it looks so close to the Aurora kit, and the hand is so dead on, like the Aurora kit's hand. I have to wonder if they didn't take pieces of the model and use it in making the sculpt. Okay, so last one here. And the mummy's not tacky. Oh, my fingers are kind of sticky from dealing with the Wolfman. I don't know what it is about his pants. I have some other jigglers from different companies that have that. Some of them, the paint gets kind of tacky. Here's the creature. Come on out, creature. He's very translucent. I mean, the light just shows right through him. He's really cool. And here's his tag, and it also has a Kresge price tag, or a price sticker that's actually printed on it. It's not a sticker applied to it, it's printed on. They don't all have that, but he's got that. I wish I could shine a light through him so you could see what that looks like, because he's very, like when I hold him up to this light over here and I see it shining through, it looks really cool. He's a very emerald green, very beautiful emerald green, especially with the light shining through him. And he doesn't look like the Aurora Kit. The creature does not look like the Aurora Kit. He looks like a still. I think it's from Creature from the Black Lagoon. It might be Revenge of the Creature, but there's this famous still of the creature coming up like this, like not on land but underwater. He's swimming and he's coming up to the camera like that underwater, and it looks a lot. I bet that it's based on that still because it's got a similar pose and everything. And it's interesting that it doesn't look like the Aurora Kit. The rest of these, well, Frankenstein and Mummy look like they might actually have pieces of the Aurora Kit in them. Wolfman's completely different, even though he's got that Aurora Kit style with shirtless and hairy torso and rope belt like the Aurora Kit. Nothing else about him, like the head and everything, does not look like the Aurora Kit. And Creature also doesn't look anything like the Aurora Kit. He's completely different. And he's got these tiny little feet. You usually think of the Creature as having these big flipper feet. He's got little teeny weeny feet. And skinny little legs. He's really cute. So I've got other ones in here. I'm trying to think, are there any that are so different that they're worth bringing out? I think this is too much. I can't, I'll get in over my head if I do that. They also have smaller versions, and the card ones that I told you about are actually smaller. Like this Creature, I mean, this is big. Look how big that is. That is a big toy. The carded one is smaller. I know, do I have a carded? I know I don't have a carded one, but I had a smaller one in here somewhere. Unless I sold him, which is possible. Okay, well here's a good comparison. Okay, I mean maybe there's a small Creature in there, I'm not sure. But for sure we have a small Frankenstein. And I don't know how many I've got now, but at one point I think I had about, I don't know, 50 of these Jigglers. I had a lot of these Jigglers. I don't think I have that many now. I don't know. How many do I have in there? Maybe 30-ish? Something like that. So here's a little Frankenstein. And let's compare him to the big one. See the size difference? So he is like the style that would be on a card, and this is obviously the style that's sold tagged. So the bigger ones were sold with the tags, and the smaller ones, like this one, were sold on a card. And you can easily find repros of those cards. I don't have any of those, but I mean they're kind of like the King Kong card. They were, you know, so big, and they had like the haunted house artwork like you've seen on other things. It had the monster name, and it had pictures of the monsters, like their faces on the sides. Or did it? No, it had their names, I think. Which was it? I don't know. I don't have one here to reference, but anyway, I don't have authentic carded ones because they're too darn much money, and they're hard to find, and when you do find them, the cards are usually torn up. And it's just not worth it to me to spend that kind of money to get a carded set. And to try to get a carded creature, forget it. So with the Bend Ems, the mummy's the hardest one. With the jigglers, the creature is the hardest one. Tagged or especially carded. So I don't know what a carded creature jiggler would cost. A lot of money. But they all cost a lot of money on cards. The carded ones are, no matter what character, they're all expensive. Just the cards by themselves with no jiggler, those can be hundreds of dollars if they're original. Most of the ones you see out there are repros. The repros are very common. They're everywhere. If you see a carded AHI Jiggler, you're seeing a repro. You're seeing a repro card. I mean, you might as well just assume it's repro because it's so common to see the repro ones, and the original authentic cards are so rare. But I do have sort of carded AHI Jigglers. So these are the same sculpt, sort of, but they're not AHI. These are Vic's novelty reissues of the AHIs. So these, they shrunk the AHI Jigglers down, even smaller than the carded AHIs. They shrunk them down, and they put them out on these cards. I want to say 1979. Yeah, there it is, 1979, and they're copyrighted Universal City Studios. So these are licensed Universal, 1979. So not long after the originals, same decade, but they're smaller. The paint is, well, like, I don't know, the paint on the mummy is more rudimentary. Paint on Frankenstein is about the same. So they're smaller. And here's Creature and Wolfman. You can really see that Wolfman is the same Chewbacca style sculpt, even though he's made before Chewbacca. Here's Creature, who looks different. It has to be the same sculpt. It's just the effect of shrinking it really distorted this one. The Creature really got distorted by shrinking him. And they just have simple backgrounds, but the Creature, his card is unique because he's got a dead body back there. There's a victim with blood coming out of him, lying on the beach. I can't tell if it's male or female. There's a person on the beach with blood coming out, lying there, dead. And the Creature, I guess, does he have footprints? No. He's come out of the water, out of the ocean, not the Black Lagoon. He's come out of the ocean onto the beach and killed this person. So kind of like Revenge of the Creature, when he's in the ocean in Florida, and there's that one part where those two young men see the young lady on the beach and stop to investigate, and the Creature comes out from the trees and kills them both. Violent scene. Bad Creature, naughty Creature. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna. Anything else is just gonna be repetitious. So I used to have a little more than this, but over the years I've whittled away some pieces. As a kid, I had all four of the. As a kid, I had the Jigglers of Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, and Creature. I didn't have a King Kong Jiggler. This AHI King Kong Jiggler, I didn't have that as a kid. I had the other four. And the Creature I had was just like this. He was big and heavy and jiggly and very translucent. And just like I like seeing the light shine through him now, I did that as a kid too. And the Mummy I have let me see here. Nah, it'd take too long to find it. So the Mummy I had was very, very white. It's all milky white all over. Had very little paint on him except his eyes and a couple of blood splotches. And I do have the same version I had as a kid. I do have it in this box, but it is take too long to find it. So you see how the mummy has a lot of paint on him. So he's actually kind of dark, actually. And I have even darker ones in here. I have almost black mummies in here. But the one I had as a kid was like white, just pure milky white. And it was a little bigger than this. And not the one, I don't have my childhood one in here, but I have one just like my childhood one in this box somewhere. I'm not digging through it. It's in there somewhere. It's just a little bigger, and it's all white, hardly any paint. And that's the kind I had as a kid. And I liked him a lot. And Frankenstein's about the same as the one I had as a kid. Wolfman's about the same as the one I had as a kid. The one thing I remember about the Wolfman I had as a kid was the mold was kind of askew, and you could see how the front and back halves of the mold didn't quite match. They were kind of off. So you could see like a smooth area where the back half was like sticking out a little bit from the front half, and in between there was like a smooth area. And so that was a weird thing about my childhood Wolfman that I remember. So I remember buying the Bend Ems at the store. I don't think it was a Kresge though. It was one of those stores that have become lost in time, like Skaggs. I think it was spelled Skaggs, Skaggs. I think that's how you spelled it. Or Knights, like King Arthur's Knights, Knights. And I think it was one of those. It was either Skaggs or Knights where I bought my Bend Ems. And I still have them. You saw my Bend Ems, so I still have them all. I absolutely had the Kong Bend Em as a kid, but I don't have them now. It's so weird. I don't have a loose Kong to show you. I had the carded one. But I think I had them all. Oh, I didn't have Wolfman, I had the Jiggler. I didn't have the Wolfman Bend Em, the rubber wire bendy figure. I didn't have that as a kid. That's the only one I didn't have as a kid. So I remember going to the store, and I remember a counter display, like a box with like a backing card. I know they sold the Jigglers that way because collectors have those boxes for the Jigglers. I don't. They're rare and sought after. But some of those boxes exist today. I could swear as a kid that there was one for the Bend Ems that had the Bendy cards were like in the box in rows and had a backer card. I could swear because I remember like being in the cart, sitting in the cart, and my parents or standing in the cart, and my parents pulling me up to that shelf and seeing that display and seeing all those cards and getting excited. And I think I bought the Mummy on that day, if I remember. So, where'd he go? Here he is. So it would have been this particular mummy, my childhood mummy. So that is the mummy that I would have bought on that day. And he's been through a lot. He's had a lot of sharp objects poked into him to try to kill him, but he keeps going because he's the mummy. It doesn't kill him. But he's had a number of weapons poked in him over the years, as many of these toys have. When I played with my toys, the so-called good guys, I mean, my games, the monsters were the good guys, but the humans or the superheroes would always really try to destroy the monsters. I mean, they would damage them. They would stick pointy objects into them or cut them or actually damage them, trying to stop them, trying to destroy them, and of course they wouldn't destroy them. and maybe a little super glue and some red magic marker for battle damage, and their monsters are ready to go again. Well, I have a lot of memories of playing with the Jigglers. Nothing I can really relate as a story. Nothing stands out. I just have these vague snapshots in my head of sitting by the sofa with the mummy, or making the creature swim around, and being fascinated by that weird mold defect. I didn't know why he had that flat area as an adult. Now I understand the 2 halves of the mold were ajar. I didn't get it as a kid why it was like that, but I remember being fascinated by that on the Wolfman. And my brother had duplicates. I mean, we all had, well, we both had Frankensteins. I know that. I don't know if we both had the other ones. Might have both had creatures, maybe? I don't think my brother had a Wolfman or a mummy, but I know we both had Frankensteins, for sure. And there was a way to tell them apart, because I think one of them, I think it was my brother's, had like a little indentation on the side of the head, side of the face, and the other didn't, stuff like that. That's how we told them apart. There was always a way to tell which one was his, or which one was mine. So I don't have any funny story or anything about playing with them. Just images, snapshots of the little sparking walkers, having fun, winding them up and turning off the lights and watching their faces glow as the sparks come out of their mouth, and listening to that sound, the whirring of that as it walked along. And just enjoying the texture of those Jigglers and the weight of the Jigglers and the smell of the Jigglers. I loved that rubbery smell. So AHIs were a big part of my life, whether it was the action figures or the Bend Ems or the Jigglers or the sparking walkers. I also had a flashlight. I don't have any as a collector, but they made Wolfman and Frankenstein flashlights with like the monster faces that would stick on the flashlight. I think I had the Frankenstein, not the Wolfman. So I had those. I had the Frankenstein. I had a flashlight. Oh, what else did AHI have? AHI made a lot of, water pistols. I don't have any of those, and because as a kid I didn't have one, but AHI made a creature, a Frankenstein, and a King Kong water pistol. It has like the big monster face on the front, and then there's a handle behind it and a little trigger, and the water comes out of the mouth. And they look pretty much like the other toys. I mean, the same sculpting style, especially the creature. The creature water pistol, the face on it looks just like the action figure. I wish I had those. They go for a lot of money, like a lot of this stuff. And so if I had them as a kid, I'd probably have at least one of them as an adult. But I didn't have them as a kid, so I don't have that same emotional connection to them. I'd like to have the King Kong, though, because I got the King Kong Sparking Walker on a card. I got the King Kong Jiggler on a card, and the King Kong Tag Jiggler, and I got the King Kong Bend Em on a card. So I'd like to have the King Kong Squirt Gun on a card. And they're on eBay. Like right now, I think there's 3 of them on eBay, but the cards are kind of bent, and they want a lot of money for them. There was a find on the King Kong Squirt Guns a few years ago. There was like a couple dozen of them that turned up, and they sold for really cheap, like, I don't know, $25 each or something. Or am I misremembering that? Was it the opposite, that they sold for a lot of money? No, the King Kong sold for cheap. And like a few people, 1 or 2 people bought them all. And so I thought, oh boy, they're going to start turning up on eBay all the time now. I'll be able to get one. No, it didn't happen. I mean, whoever bought them held on to them or sold them person to person, I guess. They didn't start flooding eBay, and the price certainly didn't go down. They're like the King Kong on a card. The water pistol, it's like, I don't know, $600-ish. maybe a little more, 700-ish, which is a little high. I mean, they don't sell at that. They have it buy it now on eBay, and they don't sell at that price. To actually sell maybe 450, I think that would actually sell at that price. I would pay that if it was a nice card, not bent. I'd pay. I could see that for a carded Kong water pistol on a nice card, not a bent card. But they want a few hundred more, and I don't want to pay that. I don't want that bad. It'd just be nice to have all the AHI Kong toys on cards and tags and packages, because I can't have everything, but I could have all the Kongs, because Kong is my favorite, my favorite movie, and probably a favorite movie monster, although I really like the creature as well. And as far as horror characters, obviously I love Coffin Joe, but I also love the Phantom of the Opera a lot. So, and as far as like real life stuff, I love Bigfoot. So those are kind of my favorites, like King Kong, Creature, Phantom, Bigfoot. I really like those monster characters. So what else did they, besides water pistols, did they make anything else I should talk about? I can't show you because I don't have anything else. Oh, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but there was this whole world of monsters that AHI made. They had the action figures, all those different styles of action figures, all the different versions. Like, I did a whole hour on them last time, and I still had one different one to show you today. So, and I haven't even scratched the surface. There's all kinds of different sculpts and different variations with the costume and the cards and everything. So many different versions of those action figures made over the years from, I think it was like 74? It wasn't 73, maybe 73, 74, until 76. But then they were still, I know the 79 catalog has some monster stuff in it. So really through the end of the decade they were still making monsters of some kind. But it was like 73, 4, 5, 6, that was like the core period when AHI was really doubling down on the monsters. And then of course Star Wars came out, and that's what people wanted, and the monsters started to recede. But for a while there, it was just, they had all these really cool, serious looking, not goofy, not cartoony, cinematic looking Universal monsters in all these different formats. You want an action figure, they got it. You want a rubber jiggly thing, they got it. You want a pencil topper, they got it. You want a squirt gun, they got it. You want little walkers, they got it. Just you name it, Bendies, whatever, they got it. They had all this stuff. And they all had that cool aesthetic, the very kind of serious, dour looking, crude but serious sculpt, and that artwork that was just, it was crude but atmospheric. It was fun. It was kind of, it evoked a world of fantasy. I think it's like this. Today, when you see Universal Monster toys, I mean, they have to be branded within an inch of their lives. I mean, you've never seen anything like that, of course. Whether the card or the toy, never seen anything like that. They have to be slick, they have to be corporate, they have to be, it's so professionally branded. They have the style guides, and all the toys or whatever the merchandise has to look like the characters look in the style guide that year, and they have their goofball logo, whether it's the blood splatter they used to have or some old-timey logo, whatever they're going for in any particular year. And it all has to be exactly like that. And then the toys, they're either screen accurate like the Sideshows, which is great, the Sideshow toys or the Diamond Select toys, or they're really bland and banal and blah and kind of cartoony, depending on whether the licensor or the toy company, do they pay for the actor likeness or not. And then there's all the fighting between the heirs of Cheney Senior, Junior, and Karloff and Lugosi. And then Universal, they're always fighting, and then some years they have an agreement, and some years they don't have an agreement. So some years you've got actor likenesses, some years you don't. Oh, brother. And at best, you either have something that looks very serious and adult, at best, or at worst, you just have this banal mediocrity. But in the 70s, things were just cool. They were fun. And I think the best way I can put it is the Frankenstein movies, the way that the images actually looked are what people might be going for today. Like looking at the screen image and saying, let's take that image on the screen and put it in this toy or this model or this artwork. Take that image off the screen and capture it in this three-dimensional thing. But as a kid, especially in a world where you didn't have these movies available on Blu-ray, DVD, streaming, you had to wait for them once or twice a year to come on TV. As a kid, the way these characters and these movies and these worlds looked in your mind when you thought about these movies, that's what this is. That's what it looked like in your head. It's not what it looked like on the screen, it's what it looked like in your imagination. When I thought of King Kong, something like that is what I had in my head. So when you're playing with them and using your imagination, these things, they didn't bring the movie to life, they brought your imagination to life. The toys today, they're so serious, like even the model like Star Wars or Marvel, they're like so detailed, and there's no imagination. There's no room to fill in your own imagination, your own inner world. You just have to take what's spoon-fed to you from the corporation, and that's all you've got. No wonder kids are more into video games now, where they can, well, even then, you don't really use your imagination there either. But that's another story. But because these things were kind of vague, and it's like a soft focus approach to it instead of sharp focus, that left room for yourself to fill in the blanks, left room to use your imagination to inhabit that inner world. So you'd watch the movie once a year, like a Frankenstein or Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then it would live in your imagination. And the colors and the atmosphere, even those were black and white movies, in your imagination, they have colors. And the way it looked in your mind was what these things captured, both the artwork and the toy itself. And in playing with these toys, they became more meaningful than the actual films. The films really were just sort of a primer to get you started, and then the real attraction, the main attraction, happened with the toys. So it's like the movie, that was a trailer. The movie was a trailer, the actual film, and the real feature film happened in your hands, playing with the toy, in your imagination. And I don't think kids have that now. Maybe they do, I don't know. I think it was easier to do that when the toys were more fun and not as serious and not as detailed and not as corporate branded and marketed and standardized. It didn't matter if it was actor likeness or no likeness or whatever. Back then, a Frankenstein figure, it didn't look like Boris Karloff or Glenn Strange or this Universal or that Universal. It looked like Frankenstein. What do you see in your head when you think of Frankenstein? That's what it looked like. It's not about a movie or not a movie or this actor or not that actor. It was like, what do you see when you think of Frankenstein? That's it. That's what it looked like. Frankenstein. And you don't have that now. Well, the AHIs are my favorite monster toys. As I said before, I like the Lincolns a lot too, but the AHIs have this whole world. The Lincolns, okay, there's variations. US carded, UK carded, boxed, okay. But it's the same figures, it's the same 6, 7, 8 figures, depending on how you look at it. And just, is it painted this way, or is it costumed that way, or what kind of package is it? The AHIs have this whole universe of all these different things. There's probably stuff we're still discovering. There's probably things we don't know about, like those pencil toppers. I mean, weird stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that turned up that no one had ever seen before. The great fantasy piece that a lot of AHI fans wish AHI had made would be parachute figures, monster parachute, little figures of parachute. They didn't make those. I don't think anything like that will ever turn up, but something weird like that might turn up. Who knows? They just made so much stuff. Or there might be some weird variation that we've never seen before. There's always new weird things popping up in the AHI universe. Just when you think you've got it all figured out and you know what everything is, something new comes along. It's time to wrap it up. Like I said, we'll have one more episode of Basement of Horror, and then we'll take a break, and then I will return for a second season of Basement of Horror. So we'll have like another dozen or so episodes later in the year. I'll take a few months off and do some, well, I mean, it's not like I'll be taking a vacation or anything, no, but I'll be doing Tomb of the Topstones, which those videos are kind of labor intensive. They take a lot of time to do those. So I'll start on a new series of those and we'll do some music stuff. And then we'll come back with more Basement of Horror. So don't worry, there'll be some more. In the meantime, you can watch the old ones. Watch them again and again. Or recommend them to somebody. Spread the word, share them. Let's build the audience so that when we return, we'll have a whole new, bigger, broader audience to enjoy them. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, we'll see. All right. Thanks a lot. Tune in again for the season finale, of Basement of Horror. Bye-bye.